We often think of animals as being essential parts of our ecosystem. Each species has its role to play. But what if I told you there's an animal on this planet that's often labeled useless? Is it really without purpose? Or is there more to the story than meets the eye? In this video, we'll take a deeper look at the fascinating concept of uselessness in nature and whether any creature truly deserves this title. In the natural world, the concept of usefulness can often be subjective. What one person might see as unnecessary or redundant, another might consider an essential piece of the ecosystem. The idea of uselessness usually stems from human expectations and needs, but nature doesn't operate by these same standards. What do we mean when we say something is useless? A creature might be labeled as such if it appears to have no discernible role in its environment or seems redundant in the grander system of life. For example, an animal that doesn't directly contribute to human survival or agriculture might seem superfluous to some. But this perspective is flawed because ecosystems are complex, and every species, no matter how seemingly insignificant, has an impact. Many times, when an animal is deemed useless, it's due to a lack of understanding. If we fail to see the full extent of how it interacts with its environment, we might miss its subtle contributions. One example is the infamous useless species, the jellyfish. To most of us, a jellyfish floating aimlessly through the water may seem like little more than a nuisance. It doesn't seem to play a direct role in feeding us, helping crops grow, or offering any immediate utility to human life. But in reality, jellyfish play a vital role in ocean ecosystems. They serve as prey for larger marine animals and help to regulate populations of smaller organisms. So the idea of uselessness is not about intrinsic worth. It's about perspective, knowledge, and a broader understanding of nature's systems. Take, for example, the woolly mammoth, which went extinct thousands of years ago. At the time of its extinction, it may have seemed like a useless creature to our ancestors, perhaps just another large animal to be hunted or avoided. But now, scientists are learning that woolly mammoths helped maintain grasslands, which in turn supported a variety of other life forms. In this sense, they weren't useless at all. They were part of a delicate balance that we now realize was essential. It's easy to label something as useless when we don't fully understand its role in the world, but nature is rarely as simple as it first appears. Now, let's look at a creature that has earned the dubious title of useless, the koala. Found primarily in Australia, koalas have long been associated with a laid-back existence, spending nearly 18 to 20 hours a day sleeping in eucalyptus trees. They feed exclusively on eucalyptus leaves, a diet that is poor in nutrients and difficult to digest. Because of this, koalas are often viewed as lazy or inefficient animals that don't contribute much to the ecosystem. However, this simplistic view overlooks the intricate relationships koalas have within their habitat. While they may seem to contribute little, koalas play an important role in their environment. By feeding on eucalyptus trees, they help prevent the overgrowth of certain plant species, which in turn affects the overall biodiversity of the region. Furthermore, the areas where koalas live become habitats for other creatures. Their presence in these ecosystems is not without purpose, even though it might not be immediately obvious. They are part of the complex web of life that maintains balance in their ecosystem, despite their seemingly minimalistic lifestyle. But koalas aren't the only animals to be labelled as useless. Many creatures, from parasites to scavengers, have been criticised for their lack of an immediately obvious contribution to the world. But in reality, these useless creatures often serve as integral pieces in the survival and balance of ecosystems. The very things that make them appear useless to us are often the things that make them vital to their environment. For instance, parasites like the tick are often seen as nothing more than pests, feeding on the blood of larger animals, including humans. However, ticks help control the populations of other species by limiting the numbers of certain animals that would otherwise overpopulate an area. Without such predators, ecosystems could face imbalances that threaten the survival of a variety of species. The label of useless doesn't account for the full range of ecological functions that these creatures fulfill. One of the most common misunderstandings in the natural world is that every organism must have a direct benefit to human life in order to be valuable. We often fail to consider the long-term ecological importance of creatures that may seem insignificant. The truth is, nature is a finely tuned system in which every species has a role to play, even if that role isn't immediately apparent to us. Even the creatures that seem the most useless might have a far greater purpose in the grand scheme of things than we could ever imagine. As we continue to explore the seemingly useless creatures in the world, it becomes clear that this idea is much more complex than it first appears. The koala, the tick, and the jellyfish all challenge the idea of uselessness and demonstrate that every animal has a place in the delicate balance of life. Whether they're providing food for other animals, controlling populations, or supporting plant life, these creatures are far from being without value. They may not be of direct use to humans, but in the grand web of life, they are essential to the stability of their ecosystems. So maybe it's time we reconsidered the very idea of what it means to be useless in nature. Every species on Earth has evolved in unique ways to survive and contribute to the balance of life. The animal we're focusing on today, often considered one of the most useless animals on the planet, has a long history of surviving in harsh environments despite its apparent lack of contribution to the greater ecosystem. This creature, despite being labeled useless by many, has somehow persisted through time, and understanding how it survives can shed light on the mysterious and often misunderstood nature of life itself. This animal, the sloth, is perhaps one of the most infamous examples of uselessness in the animal kingdom. With its slow movements, limited range of activity, and seemingly minimalistic lifestyle, the sloth has long been ridiculed for its apparent lack of purpose. But once again, this assumption couldn't be further from the truth. While it may seem lazy or inefficient, the sloth plays a vital role in its ecosystem. Sloths primarily inhabit the rainforests of Central and South America, where their slow movements help them avoid detection by predators. This slow pace is a survival mechanism, not an indication of laziness. It allows sloths to conserve energy and maintain a low profile, which is crucial in avoiding predators like jaguars and harpy eagles. Their diet of leaves, which provides them with minimal nutrition, further contributes to their slow pace, but it also means that they occupy a unique ecological niche. By feeding on the leaves of trees, sloths help maintain the health of these plants, preventing overgrowth and encouraging the growth of new foliage. In this way, they contribute to the overall health of the rainforest ecosystem. Furthermore, sloths are home to a variety of microorganisms that live in their fur, including algae and fungi. These organisms thrive in the moist environment of the sloth's fur and play a role in the broader ecosystem by providing nutrients to the forest floor when sloths move from tree to tree. In a sense, the sloth is not only a passive participant in its environment, but also a host to a variety of life forms that depend on it for survival. These seemingly insignificant creatures living on the sloth's fur contribute to the nutrient cycle of the rainforest, proving that even the slowest and most seemingly useless creatures can have a profound impact on their environment. In looking at the sloth's survival strategies and adaptations, it becomes clear that uselessness is a subjective judgment. The sloth may not be the most active or dynamic creature in the rainforest, but it plays a crucial role in maintaining the balance of its ecosystem. Its slow pace, low energy diet, and the microorganisms that live on its fur all contribute to the health and stability of the rainforest, showing that even the most useless animals have their place in the natural world. In the end, the idea of uselessness in nature is a concept that we need to rethink. Every animal, no matter how slow, small, or seemingly insignificant, contributes in ways we may not fully understand. From the koala to the sloth, from the tick to the jellyfish, these creatures are integral parts of the natural world. Far from being useless, they are essential components of ecosystems that would be incomplete without them. When we think of survival in the animal kingdom, we often picture powerful predators, fast and agile creatures, or animals with specialized abilities that make them formidable in the wild. However, survival doesn't always require strength or speed. In fact, some of the most successful animals are those that have mastered the art of adaptation. These creatures don't rely on the traits we typically associate with success in the wild. Instead, they've evolved to survive in ways that may seem unremarkable, but are nonetheless incredibly effective. Take, for example, the humble koala. As we mentioned earlier, the koala is often criticized for its lazy and seemingly inefficient lifestyle. With its restricted diet of eucalyptus leaves, an energy-poor, fibrous food that most other animals can't even digest, the koala has developed an extraordinary strategy for survival. It moves slowly, sleeps for up to 20 hours a day, and conserves energy to the maximum. This might seem like a disadvantage, but it's actually a highly successful survival strategy in its environment. The eucalyptus leaves it feeds on are plentiful, and by eating only a small amount, the koala avoids the risk of overexploiting its food source. This slow and steady approach has allowed the koala to survive for millions of years, despite its seemingly lazy existence. Similarly, other animals have evolved to thrive in environments where speed, aggression, or power would be liabilities. The sloth is another example of an animal that survives through adaptation. Its slow pace and low metabolism might seem like disadvantages, but they are, in fact, what help it survive. Sloths are able to live off the low-nutrient diet of leaves, and their slow movements help them conserve energy and avoid detection by predators. They don't need to move quickly or aggressively to survive. They simply have to be patient and efficient in their resource use. This adaptability allows the sloth to thrive in the dense, predator-heavy rainforests where many other animals would struggle to survive. Survival strategies are not limited to the obvious traits we associate with strength and skill. Many animals, especially those labeled as useless, have found creative ways to navigate the challenges of their environments. Some have developed specialized behaviors, such as hiding, mimicking other animals, or relying on camouflage to avoid detection. These strategies may seem less glamorous than the speed of a cheetah or the power of a lion, but they have proven to be just as effective in ensuring the survival of these species. One of the most remarkable aspects of survival strategies in the natural world is how animals have adapted to thrive in seemingly hostile environments. The desert is home to many creatures that are often considered useless or insignificant by human standards, but these animals have adapted in extraordinary ways to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. The fennec fox, for example, has huge ears that help it regulate its body temperature and stay cool during the extreme heat of the desert. Its light-colored fur reflects the sun's rays, helping it blend into its surroundings. While the fennec fox might appear delicate or unimportant, it's a highly skilled survivor in an environment that would overwhelm many other species. In other ecosystems, animals have developed incredibly efficient ways to manage scarce resources. The Arctic region, where temperatures can drop to extreme lows, is home to creatures that are far from useless. The polar bear, with its thick fur and layer of fat, is perfectly suited for survival in the cold. The Arctic fox has a similar survival strategy, changing the color of its fur with the seasons to blend into the snow-covered landscape. These adaptations have allowed them to survive in conditions that would be lethal to most other animals. In this sense, survival in the wild is less about being the strongest and more about being the most adaptable. As we look at these diverse survival strategies, it becomes clear that uselessness is a relative concept. Survival in nature is about finding ways to navigate challenges, whether through speed, strength, patience, or adaptability. Every animal has evolved to thrive in its specific environment, using the resources available to it in the most efficient way possible. The koala, the sloth, the fennec fox, and the polar bear may all seem different, but they share one common trait. They've adapted in ways that allow them to survive and even thrive in their unique ecosystems. We often think of value in terms of direct utility to humans, whether an animal can provide food, labor, or resources that benefit us. But nature doesn't work that way. The value of an animal isn't always about what it gives to humans directly. It's about the role it plays in maintaining the balance of its ecosystem. From the tiniest insect to the largest predator, every creature has a function that contributes to the health and stability of the environment it inhabits. And these roles, even if they seem insignificant at first glance, are essential to the survival of countless other species. Take the dung beetle, for example. To most people, it might seem like a pointless, dirty insect that feeds on feces. But in reality, dung beetles play a crucial role in recycling nutrients back into the soil, which helps plants grow. Without them, ecosystems would be overwhelmed by waste, and the fertility of the soil would degrade. The dung beetle might not seem important on the surface, but without it, entire ecosystems could collapse. Likewise, the presence of scavengers like vultures and hyenas might seem undesirable to some. These animals often get a bad reputation for feeding on the remains of dead animals. But their role in the ecosystem is far from useless. By removing carcasses from the environment, they help prevent the spread of disease and contribute to the decomposition process, ensuring that nutrients are returned to the soil. Scavengers are a crucial part of the cycle of life and death in nature, and without them, the planet would be much less clean and efficient. Even predators that are often seen as useless can play vital roles in maintaining balance. Wolves, for example, have been reintroduced to ecosystems where their absence had led to an overpopulation of prey species. By hunting these prey animals, wolves help control their populations, which in turn prevents overgrazing and ensures that plants and trees have the space and resources they need to thrive. The wolf, once feared and misunderstood, is now seen as an important part of its ecosystem, demonstrating that no animal is truly useless. The idea of usefulness in nature is also tied to a much larger concept: interdependence. No species exists in isolation. All creatures are part of a web of life that is interconnected and interdependent. Even the smallest, most seemingly insignificant creatures play important roles in this web. The humble flower, for example, might appear useless to those who view it solely as an ornamental plant. But in reality, flowers are essential for pollinators like bees, which are responsible for pollinating crops and other plants that humans rely on for food. Without these tiny creatures, we would lose much of the biodiversity that sustains our agricultural systems. Finally, as we reconsider the concept of uselessness, we must acknowledge the impact of human actions on the natural world. Many species that were once considered useless or unimportant are now facing extinction due to habitat destruction, pollution, and climate change. The loss of these species would have ripple effects throughout ecosystems, leading to imbalances that could affect everything from plant growth to the survival of other animals. Protecting these creatures and the roles they play is not just about preserving the beauty of nature. It's about ensuring the survival of the delicate systems that support life on Earth. In the end, the notion of uselessness is an outdated and oversimplified way of viewing the natural world. Every species, no matter how seemingly insignificant, plays a role in the delicate balance of life. From the slow-moving sloth to the powerful wolf, from the scavenger to the pollinator, every animal contributes to the health of the planet. The idea that any animal is truly useless is a misconception. The more we learn about the interconnectedness of life, the more we realize that every creature has value, even if that value isn't immediately apparent. Nature works in mysterious and complex ways, and every species, no matter how small or useless it may seem, plays an integral role in the larger story of life on Earth.